Hello guys, this is Dr. Possibility from Excel Academy. Kindly make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and also make sure that you register with Excel Academy. In this class, I'm just going to run through with you on how to label the diagram of day 8 of embryologic development of a fetus. So let's quickly get started. The question is, label the following diagram. So we need to understand that when we talk of day 8, which is in week 2 of development, you need to understand that the blastocyst has 2 layers. In the first week, it had 2 layers. It had the outer layer, which is known as the trophoblast, and the inner layer, which is known as the embryoblast. So when we talk of week 2 on day 8, the embryo will normally start penetrating through the walls of the uterus, and as it enters through the walls of the uterus, it's going to enter into the endothelial stroma. So when you talk of the label for A, it is just known as the endothelial stroma, which is found in the uterine walls. And then the part of the embryo which has entered the uterus, it's normally known as the trophoblast. And the first part of the trophoblast which enters the uterus walls is the syncytioblast. So let's quickly look at B. So B is just the uterine glands. So in the uterine glands, they normally secrete some fluid and also a lot of hormones which helps in the development of this embryo. Let's quickly look at C. C is just the surface epithelium. You need to note that this epithelium is that of the uterus. And this epithelium, it normally changes depending on the level of development. In this case, it is just a simple columnar epithelium. But sometimes you need to understand that the epithelium of the uterus normally changes. Sometimes it can be a simple columnar epithelium, and sometimes it can exist as a transitional epithelium. Let's quickly move on and look at B. So we need to understand that during day 8, both the outer layer of the embryo, of which we call the outer layer as a trophoblast, and the inner layer of the embryo, which is known as the embryoblast. So when you look at the inner layer will normally divide into two. It's going to form the epiblast and the hypoblast. And when you talk of the epiblast will start undergoing mitotic division, and as a result, a small cavity will appear between it. And this cavity is known as the amniotic cavity. However, we need to take note of the fact that there is also a layer which is the outer layer, and the outer layer is made up of the syncytioblast and the cytotrophoblast. So the part of the epiblast which normally be in contact of the cytotrophoblast is known as the amnioblast. So D was simply the amnioblast. If you look at the amnioblast, these are just cells which are near to the cytotrophoblast. So this is just the cytotrophoblast. Let's quickly move on and look at E. So E, like I've said, the epiblast will normally start dividing, and these epiblast cells are normally in columnar form, meaning the cells are in the what? In the simple columnar form. So when these guys divide mitotically, they will increase the number of cells. So the cells which are near to the cytotrophoblast are known as the what? The amnioblast. So these cells are simply called the amnioblast. Let's quickly look at E. E, as I have stated, E is just the epiblast, and this epiblast is the one which has simply divided to give us what we are normally calling the amniotic cavity and the amnioblast. F is just the amniotic cavity. So as you try to label this diagram, my advice is you can start from this part, you go that part and then that part. The next part you need to look at is the epiblast, and the way you can notice the epiblast is that it's supposed to be next to the what? Cytotrophoblast. And in that case, the first layer of cells you need to notice is the amnioblast. And these amnioblasts are normally in line with the what? With the epiblast. That simply means that the epiblast is normally next to the what? Hypoblast. So both the epiblast and the hypoblast are coming from one origin, which is the inner cell mass, which is known as the embryoblast, and this embryoblast is the future embryo. Let's quickly move on. So if you look at this part, this is just the hypoblast, which I have already mentioned. So the hypoblast is near to a certain cavity. So there is a cavity which is near to the epiblast, which is known as the what? Which is known as the amniotic cavity. Then we have another cavity which is near to the hypoblast, and this cavity is known as the blastocyst cavity. Remember, in week 1, you need to understand that the blastocyst was created, and this blastocyst had to have what? The blastocyst cavity. And this cavity was created due to the fluids that had to accumulate the inner cell mass of the blastula. So let's quickly move on and look at this region. Remember what I said, that the epiblast will give rise to the amnioblast, and the amnioblasts are adjacent to the cytotrophoblast. So in this case, when you talk of eye, the eye is known as the cytotrophoblast. So when you talk of the cytotrophoblast is forming the outer cell mass of the what? Of the embryo. And when you talk of the outer cell mass, which is this one, it is also having another layer which normally enters the uterus walls, okay, which normally enters the uterus walls. And that layer which first enters the uterus walls is known as the syncytial trophoblast. So let's quickly look at A. You need to understand that this part, all of this part we have been discussing, is just the embryo which is trying to penetrate through the uterus. So we are having two sections. The first section is for the embryo, which we have already done, and then this other section is the section of the maternal, which is the parent or the mother. So if you look at A, those are just some blood vessels within the maternal region, which is the uterus walls. So ladies and gentlemen, this is one important diagram that you need to take note of when you are preparing for your anatomy test. And you need to understand that this diagram, sometimes you might be asked to draw it. So make sure that you know how to draw it, and you also know how to label it. So when you talk of drawing, you need to understand that the syncytial blast is mount nucleated, and then when you talk of the cytotrophoblast, it is what? It is uninucleated. And then when you talk of the epiblast is in simple columnar, and then when you talk of the hypoblast, it is just in simple cuboidal. So guys, this is what I had for you in this video, and thank you very much for subscribing to my YouTube channel. And please make sure that you register with Excel Academy by contacting the numbers on the screen. Thank you.